Welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report, the only show that provides you with the best insight and information to everything Franklin County sports. And now here's your host, Bobby C.
Hello, and welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. I want to welcome you here today. We're excited about another show, and I want to let you know that we are now in between seasons. Between winter and spring, we do take our 5-week hiatus, which means that we have no real sports to talk about as the sports teams are now trying out for their spring sports teams to find out who will be on the rosters and who will be playing for the upcoming season. So while we do this, we have to be able to fill some gaps. We had an opportunity to interview the wrestling guys over at the Franklin County Tech last week. Well, this week, I want to talk about concussions and the importance of what parents need to know, and also about some other things about concussions that are scaring people that shouldn't be scared about, because it could happen to just about anyone. So let's get into it here on the show today. Want to thank the 4-Leaf Clover Restaurant, also by Denny's Pantry, Burniston Road in Greenfield, Lisa Alber of Alber Hearing Services, 33 Riddell Street in Greenfield, and by our friends over at Hubie's, the tavern and restaurant on Avenue A in Turner's Falls. We're now on 3 stations now. MCTV. Thank you, Deidre. Also, we got Philippe Simone and the great group here at GCTV, right here at home base with John Meisner and, of course, Chris Collins and all the folks down at the FCAT in South Deerfield. Well, you know, when we talk about the show here today, we talk about what is the big importance of concussions. Well, there's a lot of things that people need to know about concussions, and I want to go through the protocol with you of exactly what the deal is with concussions, because when people are talking sports, especially hockey and football, a lot of parents don't want their children to play those sports. And when you ask them why, they said because of the danger of it and because of the fact that our kids can get concussions. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about concussions. We're going to talk about what protocol can be taken, what you can do to try to make things so that they don't happen, and you're going to be surprised at a couple of other things too on the importance of concussions in your everyday life, not just on an athletic field or in any kind of contact sports. A concussion. A concussion, of course, is a head injury caused by the moving forces such as a bump, a blow, a jolt to the head. The results, of course, can vary with different symptoms. You know, they do change, and of course, it does give you a change in your mental status. Also, your coordination and your balance can be off too. Really, what people need to understand is it really is an injury that happens to the brain. After a concussion, the symptoms that occur from the patient to patient are what we call the different symptoms that can happen, like headaches, dizziness, vision problems, problems concentrating, feeling slowed down, repeatedly vomiting, your sleeping is really bad, you have irritability and sadness in your life. Those are the symptoms that you can occur by having a concussion. You know what's even funnier is that people don't realize that you might have had a concussion 8 days ago, but it might not show till today, 8 days later. It might not even show for weeks later after an injury. These are the types of things that can happen from a head injury. While sports-related concussions are the most commonly talked about, notice I said that, talked about, concussions can happen from falls, also car accidents, and any other traumatic events that happen in people's everyday lives. The good news is that over 80% of patients that are diagnosed with a concussion usually get back to normal within 3 weeks. Some do take a little bit longer, but most people can get back to their everyday life at about 3 weeks out. Many people think that contact sports is the primary cause and the reason why concussions are happening in sports. Actually, according to the U.S. Center for Diseases and Control, Falls are the main cause of concussions. You could fall on the ice on your way out to your car in the winter, and you can have a concussion. You could slip in the mud in mud season in the spring, and you could have a concussion. You could be out having fun playing with your grandchildren or your children during the summer, and you could fall and have a concussion. So falls is the main reason why concussions happen in America today. So when people say, oh my gosh, I get concussions because I'm going to play football or I'm going to play on the, hockey team this year. Well, believe it or not, the thing that people need to understand is that concussions happen because of certain ways that the head gets moved or jolted or hit just right. If you think about it, we have football games that happen every week here during the fall season. If concussions were that big, wouldn't every kid who played on the team have a concussion? Wouldn't every kid be complaining of the injury that they're having to their head every game? So it doesn't happen all the time, but yes, it does happen. But you know what? A kid could be running down the basketball court and he could just slip just right, or he could get hit in the head just right, and the way that they jolt their head, they could end up with a concussion. When you see a baseball game and a kid ends up colliding with another kid sliding back into a base, and they hit helmet, just say the helmet of the kid that's running hits the first baseman when he's sliding back in, and he hits him right in the head, just right. That jolted that first baseman's head just right. That player could get a concussion. So what is the concussion protocol that you can use? Well, a concussion protocol is just a standard for healthcare providers to be able to care and diagnose the injury. While protocols may differ depending on local laws and association policies, there is a protocol that can be used that is very important for people. So your local physicians, your people that you have that are your specialists in the area, they know the proper protocols to take, which means that don't put it in your own hands. So if you feel like you're not feeling right and that you did have a fall, or you might feel really some of those symptoms I mentioned earlier that are just there, get looked at. You need to get looked at for that, because the professionals are going to be able to tell you whether you have a concussion or not. You're not going to be able to tell that probably on your own. And that's the thing. Post-concussion syndrome happens when concussion symptoms stick around for weeks or months after the injury, which, by the way, it only occurs to approximately about 20% of concussion cases. Post-concussion syndrome can disrupt everyday activities, of course, including your school and social activities. So if a kid's in school and he does have a concussion, it could really affect them from being able to do well in the classroom. And they can honestly have problems with their everyday life until they do get better, because it is a brain injury. So even though it's not life-threatening, it's still a brain injury. And a brain injury definitely does affect what you can do in your everyday life and your motor skills. Your motor skills are definitely off as well. Can you die from a concussion? Well, I could tell you this. Research has shown that dying from a concussion is very unlikely. You definitely need at least 2 to 3 weeks to recover. Some people take more, some people take less. But it's usually at least 2 weeks, sometimes up to 3. And then people who really have a really bad case of it, it can definitely linger on for a longer time. But can you die from it? Research says probably not. But that still doesn't matter. It still affects a major part of your body, your brain. How to prevent concussions? No, you don't just wrap yourself up in bubble wrap and leave yourself home and never leave. That's not the way to do it. Unfortunately, there really is no easy answer in concussion prevention. Some parents think that keeping their children out of contact sports will prevent concussions. However, a concussion, as we know, can definitely happen many other ways. You know, I always say that I think that every school should have some kind of a group or a baseline that does some baseline testing just to make sure that everybody is okay, especially if you're playing for a contact sport team like football or hockey. You know, I think those are pretty dangerous in a lot of ways. I think that you're using your body and your head, especially in football and hockey. When you're checking, you're going up against somebody. In hockey, when you're in football, you have that contact one-on-one. So you definitely do the head with, hitting helmet to helmet. And that's why they've made helmet to helmet such a crucial offense in football, where they call it spearing. Spearing is very dangerous, and you can get speared in the chest, but you can also get speared with the head-to-head contact, and you don't want the helmet-to-helmet at all in football, because especially with these guys being so athletic, so fast, that it happens so quick that these guys can get injured really bad. What people don't realize is that you have more problems with your motor skills than you will of any kind of death-related. So just think about this, that if you end up getting a really bad concussion, it can affect you for maybe years. But you're not going to die from it, but boy, you surely are going to pay the price with the motor skills that are going to be lost because of having a concussion. So what do I tell parents? I tell parents that maybe you should go back to school and ask your school officials what baseline testing is. What baseline testing is, it's a way of tracking the functioning at the health state, finding out how the neurological system is working for your children. This way, a lot of the schools are doing this in some of the bigger cities where they have a lot more kids that are playing sports, and there's a lot more bigger football programs and a lot more competition, and honestly, a lot more bigger and stronger players. And that is where the baseline testing can come into effect. And I think that what people need to understand about baseline testing is the fact that they can be able to get some answers on how things are doing for your child, on whether they should be playing these kind of sports. A lot of people say, what am I gonna do? My kid loves football. Well, you know what? Sometimes you got to give the tough love and tell them that because of their issues of being accident prone, or they have issues that are happening with their brain because they had an injury that happened before, now you got to be careful. You know what I use as a base for a concussion is that when you get a concussion once, you can get it easily again. And I will tell you an example is that if you twist your ankle, okay, and when you twist your ankle, you made it less weak. So now it's weaker, now it's weaker. So now it's gotten weak. Now you do it again, it's going to be even easier to twist it again. And every time you keep re-injuring that ankle, it's going to get weaker and weaker and weaker. Well, think about your brain. Every time that you have a concussion, it's going to have more damage, more damage, more damage. So the more damage that's done makes it weaker and weaker and weaker. So this is why you have to be very careful about when you have to make those decisions of when enough's enough. So if a kid goes out and plays a contact sport and ends up having a concussion, and then the next season has it again, and then another season has it again, your child is now susceptible to this, and now they probably shouldn't continue to play that sport, because every time they do it, their brain is getting more damage done, and it's getting weaker and weaker, which means that the mobility issues, the memory issues, the headache problems, everything affected on what happened from that concussion is going to start affecting the child. So I really think that what we need to do is we need to do a better job at the prevention and making sure that we get the proper people to do the work to check on this to make sure it's okay. If your child doesn't say anything because they didn't think they had a concussion, that's the worst part. And it's not their fault. And you can't blame the child for that. Well, I played football. I got my bell rung. Yeah. Hey, hit me a good one. Yeah. But if you notice, like 2 weeks later, that the kid's having a lot of headaches and the vomiting's happening and there's weird symptoms that are coming up, that's when you got to do your homework as a parent, and you need to do like I did, do a little research, find out what really are the best ways to prevent these from happening and what the protocol is. And really, the protocol really has not much to do with you except for one thing. Pick up the damn phone, make a phone call to the doc, and let the doc be able to take a look at the child. Because you're not going to be able to make that decision. That's not your job. Your job as a parent is to do the right thing, to go to the professionals to get them looked at your child. That's what your job is. And their job is to find out what is wrong to be able to help this child from not go through all of these symptom problems and to help prevent any more concussions from happening. So parents who say, the kid says he's okay. Well, okay. You want to go by your kid's advice, but you notice that the kid came to you first and said something about it. That's not very responsible as far as I'm concerned if you're not going to try to take the right steps to find out exactly what is wrong with your child. As adults, we're terrible. We don't want to go to the doctors. We're okay. We're tough. Yeah, everything's fine. But when it comes to your child, if you want to make that really bad decision on your own because you're an adult, that's fine. But you have to do the right thing on behalf of your child. And that means you need to pick up the phone and you need to contact the right physicians to be able to get the proper care and the proper answers that your child deserves to get, and yourself too. And I'm not saying that every parent does this. I'm saying that the ones who don't, you're really doing an injustice to your child, and you're going to end up having to pay for this later in life when you find out that you could have prevented things and you didn't do it because you were being stubborn or you're lazy because you couldn't pick up the phone and make the right call. That's why I did this show, is because a lot of parents have come up to me over the last 3 or 4 years since I started the show and said, the reason why numbers are down on the football field and the reason why kids don't play sports of contact is because of the fact that they're all going to get hurt. And the parents don't want to take that chance. So they tell their kids, you can play soccer. Do you know that soccer's just as dangerous as a game of football? It's not just the kids running up and down the field. They slide tackle. And you know what? When you slide tackle a kid and you can't see him and they're going after a ball, that kid's not even going to see the other player coming. So when their legs go up in the air and they fall down, their head goes right on the ground. What is the ground like in the fall when they play soccer? What about if they're in the playoffs and it starts getting into October where the ground starts getting hard? Oh, so your kid just hit cement, but he was on a ball field, and he was playing not football. He was playing soccer. Did he have a football helmet on? No. Did he have any helmet on? No. Was the kid vulnerable for being in the wrong place because the ball was near him and a kid ended up coming in for a little slide to knock the ball out? Sure, it's part of the game. But the soccer player just got a concussion. Wasn't the football guy. Wasn't the kid who ended up getting checked over at the hockey rink. It was the kid in the back of the high school who was playing on the soccer field who's now got the concussion. This is the kind of stuff that we need to be aware of, and we need to take it seriously. So that's why I thought it would be really great for us to take a moment while we had this off-season opportunity to talk a little bit about concussions and the importance of what you can do. You can go online and you can just put, what do we do about concussions? And you will get enough literature to be able to keep you busy for a while. There's a lot of things that can happen. Let me just give you some of the things that you might notice in your child of someone who had a concussion, but they didn't know it. But all of a sudden, these things came up. These are the kind of concussion symptoms that can come up weeks later. Problems with concentration and memory, the dizziness and the lightheadedness that they're having, the sensitivity to lights and to noise, their change of their sleep pattern, like if they're normally really good sleepers and all of a sudden now they're really antsy and they sleep like Bobby C where they don't sleep, then, you have problems, okay? What about the double vision or even some of that fuzzy vision like you get like when you feel like I did when I first became a diabetic? I started to get the blurry vision. I didn't even know I was a diabetic till I found out I was a full-blown diabetic. But I found out the hard way with blurred vision. What about the fogginess that people feel? And all of a sudden you just feel like you're nauseated all the time and you want to you just feel like you just want to vomit because you don't feel good. Those are the signs of a concussion. And it can happen weeks after something may have happened. What I mean by that is say your son or daughter are out playing with friends and they ended up doing something and your kid fell and bumped their head. That day they said, I noticed I got a little bit of a bump or an egg on my back of my head here, but it ended at that. I feel fine. I just, I was fooling around with my friends, blah, blah, blah. But 3 weeks or a month later, all of a sudden, 4 or 5 of these symptoms I just mentioned came up. That means they might have had a concussion at that time. It just didn't show up yet. But that's all part of how your brain works. So you don't always know right away. So this is where you as the parent need to take the proper precaution to be able to see a physician to get the proper help and the answers that you need for your child. Now, some people say, well, how long can this last? Well, like I said, you can be back and moving 3 weeks. Sometimes if you're a young kid, it can be a little bit longer, maybe a month to maybe a month and a half. It could go to that 4 to 6 weeks for the younger kids because, if you're a real young fella or a real young lady, you can really feel that there's a big difference in what's happening with them. And you got to remember, too, they're small. And here's the thing. If a small kid takes a bigger fall, isn't that going to do more damage to the brain because their head is so small and they're still smaller? That's how I feel about it, So you have to be able to know what to do to be able to take the proper precautions for your child and get them looked at by the physicians. There's many signs, like I said, that are being able to notice if there is a concern with concussions. But what happens if you don't report a concussion? What are the severe risks that can happen if you don't take the proper care of what happened with this? Well, first of all, by not evaluating it can be a risk to what they call second impact syndrome or post-concussion syndrome, which can be very dangerous. And that's something that you need to avoid with your children. You need to avoid that. So what ends up happening if your child has a concussion and they are big into gym at school and the local sports scene and all that? So what you need to realize is that it's now going to limit your mobility. It's going to limit your ability to participate in some of those school sports. You need to get back on a regular schedule in your classroom and being able to be stable on going back to school after you have a concussion and you're out of school for a few weeks. You have to get yourself back into it, and you got to do it easily, not right away. People say, what happens if we miss school? Well, you miss school because you have to. But what the teachers need to do is they need to send home packets home with you to be able to get the proper care at home that you need, the rest that you need, the sleep that you need. And you need to take it seriously enough that you need to keep up with your school so you're not so far behind everyone else. But you also have to remember that you're going through a brain injury with a concussion. And with a brain injury, things are going to take longer, and things might even take a little bit more to comprehend. And you might have to have your parents read the stuff to you because of the fact that if you are having the blurred vision, you're not going to be able to read the paper as well either. These are the kind of things that need to be taken seriously. And this is why a concussion is so important to be able to take care of. When it happens or when you know it's happened, you need to get help. Parents, what we need to do is we need to contact a physician or a physician assistant, even a nurse practitioner or a neurologist, or even an athletic trainer has experience in this. And a lot of nurses are now taking special programs to be able to know more about concussions as well. So it's not just your local doctor, it's your local neurologist, or even if the kids have an athletic trainer at their school or a physician that's on the field, well, that physician is going to be able to help your child in that situation. You know, sometimes you can what they call take a concussion test. Now, the concussion test is a tool or a device used to check a person's level of functioning after a suspected concussion. There are several types of concussion tests, all right? One's for your neurological, one's for your balance, one's for your vascular system, one's for motion sensors. There's different ones. These tests do not diagnose the concussion itself, but it at least gives you an idea of what areas are being affected by it. What I mean by that is if you're noticing that you're having mobility issues, then you know that that mobility issue is happening because of what happened with a concussion. You'll notice that there's certain other things that are going to pop up that are a problem with your neurological system. That stuff is all going to be able to be out when you notice what happened with a concussion. So all I can tell you is that you need to make sure you take the proper care of yourself during a concussion, active rehabilitation, and actively targeting the areas that need to be treated. Those are the things that need to be done in a concussion. And honestly, the long of it is that you're not going to die most likely. You are going to go through some difficult periods, especially in the beginning if you do have it for at least 2 to 3 weeks, could be longer. And just remember, every time that you re-injure yourself, it's going to end up getting worse. Just like I said earlier about an ankle. You just keep twisting the ankle weaker and weaker and weaker. Well, that's going to be your brain as well when you go through this. So take it seriously. Do what a lot of schools are now doing. They're getting educated on concussions. Doesn't mean that you can't either. I think it's something that could be very beneficial for all parents. And even your children to sit down with you. Maybe you all should sit down and catch some videos or print off a bunch of literature and have your children read it about exactly what to do in case of a concussion, and mainly find out about what a concussion really is so that if they do feel some of those symptoms coming on, they know that they can take the proper steps to be able to get this taken care of. So, yes, it was an off week this week. Yes, we had to make a few extra decisions on what we were going to do, but I wanted people to be aware of concussions and how important concussions really are on and off the field. That's the most important, on and off the field. So as you're tuning into the show today, being a big sports person, you had a chance to hear it from a sports side, but you also had a chance to hear it on an everyday life side on how this can affect just about anybody, period. So there you go. You're updated on the concussions. Now what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about how things have really improved in sportsmanship here in Franklin County. You know, I talk to people all the time and I say, you know, the one thing we need to control is our behaviors at games. This isn't about the kids, it's about the parents. The referees, the goal judge, all these people all have to preach when the kids are sitting in the, sitting in the penalty box at a hockey game. You need to tell the kid, hey, you got to calm down, bro. You're getting too nuts. You got to relax. This is all fun. This is all about having fun in your younger age. Enjoy yourself. Before you know it, you're going to be working in the workforce. You're not going to have time to play these sports. So go out and enjoy it while you're young. But do it in a safe way so nobody gets hurt. And you know what? Your attitude is what's going to make it for you to be a better person later in life. It's going to make you better to be able to work with as a coworker because of your discipline and your self-worth. And no need to be the Mr. Tough Guy. Because you know what? Nobody cares about the tough guy when you get older. And if you think that people really care when you're in school too, they really don't care. You know what? You look like a bully. That's what you look like. You look like a bully. And you know what? It's funny because there's certain types of people who always get told that they're bullies. It's when the fat guy picks on the skinny guy. The little guy feels like he's being attacked by everybody because it's small man syndrome. Listen, come on. You're a teammate. You're a person on our program. We are representing our school. We're representing ourselves. We're representing our community. And sportsmanship should be an important part of teaching your kids and coaching from the time they're little to the time they get through college into their adult life. And if these kids are able to have the proper guidance and be able to get the proper tools, most likely these kids are going to turn out to be later in life productive, compassionate, and team people. Isn't that what you want to be hanging around with? You don't want to hang around with the bully or the Mr. Tough Guy. Who cares? Let Mr. Tough Guy go look at himself in the mirror and flex his muscles, hey, because nobody cares. I don't want to look at him. I could care less. You know, you have to understand that there is a time and a place for everything. There's no time for bad sportsmanship when you're representing you, your team, and your community. And one thing about high school athletics is that's exactly what you do. You represent yourself, your school, and your community. And if you're the one who's looking like the idiot out there, that's sad, man. Don't need to be the tough guy because nobody cares. Matter of fact, you know what they care about? They care about how well you're going to play and how well of a teammate you are and how well you're going to be able to handle adversity when you're down by 4 points with 38 seconds left and you want to win that game. And you're not going to do stupid things like a stupid flagrant foul, and now the team gets 2 free throws, and they get the ball back, and now you don't even get the ball back. Is that what Mr. Tough Guy did for you? Good, because guess what? You lost. You lost. Game over. You lost. So, composure, good sportsmanship, helping others, encouraging others, that's what makes championship teams. You know, it's funny. You hear about all these championship teams that end up having all these great players, and they pay all this money for all these great players. You get them on the court together, and they all are superstars. So what happens? It's about me. No, it's about me. No, it's about me. Guess what? You, and you just lost yourself a championship because of me. But the team over there who didn't have as much talent, who decided they wanted to work together as a program and to be a better team and to dish off the plays and do the right thing and make everybody work together, they're going to the championship now. and you're going home to play golf. Oh, by the way, golf's a great individual sport. It's about me. So maybe you should go play on the golf team instead of a team sport because you have an attitude problem. So when we all put this show together today, we talk about prevention and we talk about team sports and being a leader or a team player. That's where we're at today. So I could sit here and talk about every individual kid and how many points they scored and whatever, but you know what? This week it's about something a little different. It's about being a leader. I want people to understand that when you're on a sports team, you need leaders. You don't need 15 leaders, but you know what you need? You need people that can respect the people who are the leaders. When the team gets a captain and the captain is a leader, he's not a captain because he's the best player. That's another thing too. If you're a good coach, you're not going to make all your captains your best players because they're not all leaders. You need two of the guys who are your up-and-comers that have shown you stuff. They should be captains as well. It's not about the best players. So when I see the best players go out for being the captain, I shake my head. I go, that coach is missing out, man. He should have two other kids out there that should be leaders that are going to help these other people because they're not the me guys. They're the we guys. See? The me's and the we's, baby. You can be a me or you can be a we. But I'll tell you, we win championships. Me, go home. That's what happens. So when I tell people about how important sports is and how it all starts with sportsmanship, team play, that's where we're at. You know, it's funny because I've had a couple of my Little League teams that were not that great, but I had the best kids. And people used to say to me, you know, you must have loved that team back in, 2014, Bobby C. They were all right. What do you mean? They won a championship. Yeah, you know what? They won a championship because of many things. But I like this group of kids here in 2019 better. You know why? Because they play together as a team. They encourage each other. They make each other feel good. They understand that kids make errors on a baseball field. You know, get it next time, buddy. Here we go. That is what we need in sports today. We don't need, if Billy was at second base, we wouldn't have this problem right now because Billy would have made that play. But you know what? Billy's not playing second, so, oh well, we got an error. Oh, that's a great way to make a kid feel good. That's a great way to make your team better. And that's a great way to be able to have great, self-esteem in that dugout as soon as you guys end the inning. Whatever. That is crap-ola, folks. Crap-ola. And this is why it's time for everyone to understand the principles of sportsmanship. And it all starts at the top because it's mom and dad who are sitting in the stands with their little, no one wants to hear you, lady. You know what, sir? Shut up. That's what we need to do. Call them out. Call these people out, folks. That is what is going to make it better. Those are the people who are making their kid a me guy, not a we guy. When you get a bunch of we's, you get championships. The me's, sorry, folks, you're going home, and that's it. Speaking of going home, I'm going to wrap this up. But I just want to let you know that this show is really about concussions and sportsmanship today. Hope you guys learned a little bit of something today because it was something that we needed to really talk about. And take some of these tools to be able to make things better. Make them better in your life. Make them better in your child's life. And just remember, if you carry some of these tools with you, you're going to be able to be a much safer and a much better person. So as we put a wrap on the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report for another week, I want to say a big thank you to John Meisner and to Philippe Simone, also to our wonderful sponsors, the Four Leaf Clover Restaurant, also by our friends over at the Denny's Pantry on Berniston Road in Greenfield, Lisa Albert of Albert Hearing Services, 33 Riddell Street in Greenfield, and by Hubie's Tavern and Restaurant, Avenue A in Turners Falls. And don't forget, you can enjoy us on the FCAT down in South Deerfield, here on GCTV at gctv.org, and also on MCTV in Turners Falls. So until we meet again, you have yourself a wonderful day, and please remember, sportsmanship and safety are very important.
Thanks for watching the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report on GCTV. Catch a game and be sure to join us next time for more sports and fun.